At times, the plot proved unpleasant. All year, Clark found herself party to raging debates, even though she rarely, if ever, did anything to perpetrate them. "I tell people I feel like the most controversial person," says Clark. "But I am not. It's just because of all the storylines that surround me. I literally try to live and treat everybody in the same exact respectful, kind way. It just confuses me at times. That her gender played a role in the level of scrutiny is hard to deny." Clark's introductory press conference with the Fever was a harbinger of things to come. A male reporter appeared to make a cringe-worthy attempt at flirtation with Clark. He was suspended and prohibited from covering the Fever. As the season progressed, more flashpoints emerged, whether concerning the marketing advantage granted by her race, fouls that players committed against her, or her exclusion from the U.S. Olympic team, that spurred her so-called defenders to push racist, misogynistic, anti-LGBTQ narratives, or even threaten WNBA players directly. She calls this toxicity upsetting and gross, but during the season she addressed the discourse, mostly when asked about it in courtside interviews or at press conferences rather than proactively engaging with it. "It's not something I can control, and to be honest, I don't see a lot of it," The Athletic's Jim Trotter in June. Her extended interview with Time is the first time she's talked at length about her year still. In the face of all this heaviness, joy remains the resonant vibe of Clark's 2024. Her talent brought together communities, in SRO arenas, in sports bars and living rooms, on social media, to celebrate her fire, unselfish play, and ability to score in inconceivable ways when she needed to. Clark certainly fed off this electricity. "You feel powerful," Clark says. "Instantly, everybody goes crazy. People are invested in the game, they love the game, and that's what makes it so fun for me. These people aren't supporting women's sports to check a box. It's going to be the new normal." The weekend before our interview, Clark attended back-to-back shows at Lucas Oil Stadium. She met Swift's mother and boyfriend, Kansas City Chiefs tight end Travis Kelce. When fans noticed her sitting in a suite, they turned around to take pictures or toss her friendship bracelets. "People are just going crazy that I'm there," she says. "I thought people would be so in their own world, ready to see Taylor. And it was just completely the opposite." Swift gave Clark 4 bags of Eras tour merchandise with a note saying Clark was inspiring to watch from afar. She said Trav and I were excited to get to a Fever game now that the tour was winding down, and invited Clark to attend a Chiefs game with her. Clark has always seemed destined for greatness, if not friendship, with the biggest pop star in the world. Her path to this women's sports paradigm shift started in West Des Moines, Iowa, where Clark played multiple sports as a kid before focusing on her best one. She's the second of 3 children. Clark has 2 brothers. Her father, Brent Clark, is executive vice president at a company that sells and distributes agricultural and industrial parts, and her mother and Nitzy Clark is a retired marketing executive. Jan Jensen, an Iowa assistant coach at the time, first watched Clark play when she was in middle school. She hit a step-back three-pointer and threw a long pass her teammate couldn't catch. But the ball was on the money. "You could see her swag," says Jensen. "The way she walked. In a Pee Wee game, when everybody's like, 'Your shot hit the rim, let's go get ice cream,' she's like, 'I don't want any freaking ice cream. I want to win.'" That's when the Caitlin Clark mission began. Her Catholic family wanted her to pick Notre Dame for college, but Clark shunned the Fighting Irish to play for her home state school. She put up big numbers at Iowa immediately, but had trouble hiding her frustrations. She'd shake her head when someone screwed up, or take it out on a towel, or a chair. If somebody couldn't catch a pass, she'd throw her hands up and do a pirouette, says Lisa Blutta, the Iowa head coach during Clark's years at the school. Blutta retired after last season, and Jensen now runs the program. The coaching staff worked with Clark to improve her body language, showing her video of her outbursts, and she reined it in for the most part. By her junior year, Iowa was knocking off undefeated South Carolina in the national semis to reach the finals against LSU. That championship game was Clark's inauguration into the 24-hour sports news cycle. In the final moments, when it was clear LSU would win, Tigers forward Angel Reese approached Clark and pointed at her ring finger. A bit of that sparked needlessly cruel backlash. Reese was labeled classless and worse. Clark and Reese were pitted against each other as rivals, a narrative that is carried over to the WNBA. "I don't get that at all," says Clark. "We're not best friends by any means, but we're very respectful of one another. Yes, we have had tremendous battles. But when have I ever guarded her? And when has she guarded me?" She downplays Reese's gesture. "I didn't think it was taunting," says Clark. "It really didn't bother me. It's just like, why don't you talk about them winning? Or the incredible run that we went on that nobody would have thought we would have ever gone on. The only thing people cared about was this controversy that was really fabricated and made up, and then that has continued to be the case ever since." Going into her senior year, Clark was in a much different position than women's basketball players who have come before her. Iowa played summer exhibition games in Italy and Croatia, and with the help of name, image, and likeness, sponsorship money from brands like Nike, Buick, and the Midwestern grocery chain Hy-Vee, Clark treated her teammates to a yacht outing in the Adriatic. "I wouldn't say it was boozy," says former Iowa manager Will McIntyre, now director of scouting and technology for the Rutgers women's team. "I would say bougie." Clark loved college life and even considered returning for a fifth year instead of entering the 2024 WNBA draft. Because of the COVID-19 pandemic, NCAA players were granted an extra year of eligibility. Around January, however, Clark knew it was time to move on. It helped that assuring that Clark, unquestionably the #1 pick, would begin her career in the Midwest. She announced her intention to enter the draft at the end of February. Lynn Dunn, then the Fever general manager, now a senior advisor, saw the news on X. "I would have done a back handspring if I wasn't 77 years old," says Dunn. About a month later, on the eve of this year's NCAA tournament, West Virginia's coach told his players, "Let's send Caitlin Clark packing." So after Iowa dispatched the Mountaineers in the second round, Clark took a microphone before practice, stood on the scorer's table, and sang "Country Roads" at the top of her lungs. "I kind of just troll," Clark says. She has a big, loud personality with people she's comfortable with. When former Iowa teammate Kate Martin visited Clark's indie apartment as a member of the Las Vegas Aces in September, Clark serenaded her with songs on her karaoke machine. "She's not a good singer at all," says Martin. For the record, Temi Fagbenle, who is Clark's Fever teammate this season and will join Martin on the expansion team the Golden State Valkyries in 2025, disagrees. As a rookie, Clark was tasked with singing Happy Birthday to the teams